Welcome to Sky Women. I'm your host, Dr. Carolyn Moyers, a wife, mom, and board-certified OB-GYN. This is a place to educate, empower, and inspire. Join us each week as we share the power of women's stories. Real women, real stories, real inspiration. Put on your stretchy pants. Let's get going. Welcome, Sky community, to another episode of Sky Women. I'm so excited that you're with us today because we have a special guest with us, Dr. Funke Brown. She's a triple board certified sleep medicine physician who's passionate about helping people discover the gift of sleep as a superpower. I mean, that is a mission, Dr. Brown. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to get into your bio a little more because you provided it for me, and it's just fantastic. You're also a speaker, an educator, a writer, and the founder of Restful Sleep MD, where you help busy professional women and their children prioritize sleep, but also thrive and live in their fullest potential. And I just got to say, I need you in my life. And so you're here to educate me and others. Thank you so much. So how did you get interested in sleep medicine?
I would say I would start with my own story. Honestly, it was something that I struggled with. I never just seemed to have enough of. And so right from training, right, where I was burning the candle on both ends like everyone else, but really struggling with the consequences of that, started to spark my interest as I started to discover for myself that I needed to get enough sleep to function. I would spend the whole night, trying to study and then go to my test the next morning and I couldn't remember anything. And, of course,
I wonder why you couldn't remember anything.
And I'm like, wait, I just read this. Why can't I seem to grasp it? Why am I at a loss for words? And I was walking in that constant fog, felt anxious, all that. And it's all related to sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
And then fast forward, I did my training initially in pediatric pulmonary medicine, but then again, started seeing this theme of sleep deprived moms bringing their kids in and I could just identify with them myself. And so that really pushed me to get my fellowship, my training in sleep medicine, and then to create my company, which is Restful Sleep MD, really focused on helping moms get the sleep they need, helping them personally, helping their kids, and making sure that the whole family is able to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I always say in our family is that when we all sleep well, we're better to each other, if mama's well rested, I'm going to be much happier. And I fall in this rut, as I'm sure so many other moms may, where you struggle to stick to that bedtime, especially in the summer when it's daylight until almost 9 p.m. And then you finally get everybody to bed and you get your little tasks done, or you wound vegging out until it's entirely too late and you're kicking yourself because you're wondering, why in the world did I stay up too late? But it's the first moment that you've had any time to yourself.
Yes. What you just described is actually a term now that is it's not that well known, but there's not too much research on it, but it's called revenge bedtime procrastination. It's a thing. It's not made up. Exactly what if you really look at if you look it up online, that's exactly what you just described. You might as well just type it up. That is called revenge bedtime procrastination. And it's very common with a lot of busy professional women, as well as, college students as well, where you've just felt so consumed by everything else and everyone else.
Yeah.
And then finally you're like, I get a time to myself. Like, come on, I deserve this. And so one Netflix show turns into 10, and one small bowl of ice cream becomes the entire pint, so. And then you're annoyed because guess what? Those kids you put to bed wake you up in the morning. And so you didn't get enough sleep. And you're like, why did I do this? And then the day starts. Yeah. And again, there we go.
Yeah. And so then you go into your Starbucks coffee and your afternoon caffeine, and then you can't get to sleep because you had too much caffeine. I mean, it's this vicious cycle. So Dr. Brown, why is sleep so important?
Yeah. We could start from top to bottom. Like one thing I say is, sleep is not just a luxury, right? You may have heard a lot of people say things like, you snooze, you lose, I'll sleep when I'm dead, like sleep is for this, that. And the other one thing is, it's not just that. First of all, that's completely wrong. You do need sleep to thrive in every area. One, even just for cleaning out your brain. It turns out that we have a system in our brains called the G lymphatic system. It's similar to the lymphatic system in our bodies, where deposits on your brain stay on over the course of you being awake. And then you need sleep for that system to kick in and wash off those deposits. And some of those products, those waste products, are things like beta amyloid, which have been associated with conditions like Alzheimer's and things like that. So when you do wake up and you feel like you're living in a fog, you feel you're just not quite clear. Some of that is because of that either inefficient system, because we've not gotten the sleep we need. And then our heart health, our mental health, our mood, our immune system actually gets revamped when we sleep. So in addition to just the rest and restoration, we have healing in our bodies completely when we sleep, and our metabolism. So we have a lot of people who have, diabetes, hypertension, insulin resistance, things like that. Obesity has also been associated with insufficient sleep. So this really affects us from all the way from the top to the bottom. Aging faster when we don't get enough. And I always give an example of, think about it as a mom yourself. You've had that long day and you can't sleep well. First of all, your choices are off. So you might feel some cravings, and it's scientifically proven because of those imbalance in your hormones, where you suddenly go to the fridge and you're not looking for carrot, you're looking for carrot cake. And that's really
because with some good creamy icing.
It's not just because you wouldn't typically, of course, indulge in carrot cake, you deserve it. But at that time at night, that may not be the best option for you. And some of those things are because of the cravings you start to desire because you've not slept well. And so imagine eating that and then trying to go to sleep, and then, the guilt related to that. So really, it's so encompassing on a mental level, an emotional level, and a physical immune system level, you name it.
Yeah. So remind me, we're going to come back to that at a later point because, like my typical perimenopausal woman who's waking up at night and can't sleep and is gaining weight and can't get it off. Like, we're going to come back to that. Okay. Why do you think that American women are so tired?
We are so tired. I would say because we're not prioritizing the things that help our health, really. Sleep is a huge one. When we talk about the critical pillars of health, it's your physical activity, is nutrition, and also sleep. And so we tend to neglect that as that thing we have to do at the end of the day. And other things like our obligations, our other needs to meet other people's needs and things like that pushes sleep onto the back burner. And so I think that's a huge reason why we don't prioritize sleep. And also I feel like the fact that we don't see sleep as what it is. So if we don't know something, we don't know to do it, right? So understanding the science behind how important sleep is the first step to really starting to make those right choices. So I think those are very common reasons that I encounter. And then there's also the issue of you do get into bed and you can't, it's like sleep eludes you. You've been so exhausted. You're like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to hit my head on that pillow. And then all of a sudden a switch, goes on, which is kind of related to what you said, like, especially if you've been going all day and then you've really not had a time to sort of de-escalate and de-stress, right. And then you hop straight into bed. That tends to impact your ability to fall asleep well.
Yeah, right. Well, your mind is racing and you've got the list of 15 things you need to do and carpool tomorrow and that patient I need to see and all of the things. I feel like I have my best thoughts at 3 a.m. in the morning when I wake up and I'm thinking.
I know.
Okay, So let's start at where I think the beginning is in setting boundaries for ourselves, because we do this for our kids, right? Limited screen time. We're going to take a bath. We're going to read stories. The lights are dim. And then for us, when the kids go to bed, it's like, party, I'm going to watch Netflix. Maybe I'll take a bath, and don't do that same, turning it down to really get some rest. So let's talk about what boundaries we should be setting around sleep and setting ourselves up for success.
Absolutely. So I think one thing I always say is sometimes when you talk about I'm tired all the time, I'm not sleeping well, at times it's not necessarily the sleep issue. It's a boundary issue, And so the same way we try to set boundaries with our work, with our colleagues, with our kids.
Mhm.
It's the same way we have to apply to sleep. And one of the things I say to start off with is see your sleep as your sort of like your multidisciplinary visit, right? What do you do in a visit with multiple specialists? You may be seeing a cardiologist, you may be seeing a neurologist, you may be seeing a physical therapist, you may be seeing a nutritionist, you may be seeing what else? A GI doctor, an endocrinologist. So all those specialists, okay? All those specialists are in your sleep based on all the benefits. So the same way you wouldn't miss your appointment with your doctor and say, oh yeah, I know I'm scheduled to see you and 5 other specialists today, but I'm going to just bump it off a little bit. You don't do that. So set your sleep like an appointment, and then everything else you sort of fit in that. And I feel like when we do that, when we say, okay, I've been given 24 hours a day, everybody has that. It's the gift we've been given. But of those 24 hours, about 7 to 9 of them are meant to be sleep. So how am I going to be strategic in planning my day to make sure I don't miss that appointment with my sleep? Because that's where I get my, my restoration, my energy back, my mood, my focus improved, so that I can be a better version of myself. So when you make that switch just in your mind, then it helps you kind of start to line things up in a way where you're not pushing and running a marathon into your bedroom. You're creating some buffer zone, things like that. Because if I'm supposed to get, 7 hours of sleep and I plan to be asleep by 10:30, then I can't be, working actively by 10. I probably need to be winding down, because my brain is not going to just switch to sleep mode. My brain needs moments to transition. So that way you sort of create that buffer.
Right. Well, I think just like you talked about, studying all night and then going in your chest and wondering why you couldn't remember the thing that you just read. You knew you read it. You could almost see where it was on the page, right? But you can't recall the information. Our brains and our bodies and our minds and our moods are all going to function better if we're getting better sleep. Yeah. So I think that's a really fair point. You have to kind of set this date with yourself. Now, when you say that, everybody always wants like all of these gadgets, right? Like they're talking about the thing that they're wearing on their watch. They asked me if I was wearing my Apple Watch to sleep. And I was like, that sounds like the most uncomfortable thing on earth. No, I don't do any type of devices, but I am the first to admit that I am not great at prioritizing my sleep. And I wish I were better. But I'm doing all of these revenge bedtime procrastination things that we talked about earlier. So in setting those boundaries, how much sleep do we need and what are your recommendations? And are any of these gadgets really helpful to see if we're getting adequate sleep?
Yeah, absolutely. And you are not the only one. Revenge bedtime procrastination is extremely common, extremely. But I think, the first thing is making that decision that, what, this matters, my sleep matters, because that way I'm showing up better for everyone. Like I'm suddenly the same things, the kids that felt like they were walking around me on eggshells, they're like, what just happened to mom? That kind of thing. So once you set that as the goal, then the idea is, okay, how do I get there? Now, the recommendations are 7 to 9 hours of sleep for like an adult. But it turns out these numbers, while they're recommended by the National Sleep Foundation, they're not like set in stone. The ideal number of hours of sleep for you is the amount of sleep that you need to help you feel rested, rejuvenated, and energetic during the day. So if, for instance, you're trying to get 9 hours of sleep and your body only needs 7, that's fine. You just have to be true to yourself. So the range, again, is 7 to 9. And the way I ask people to have that checked to get a sense is, how much sleep do you typically get when you're on vacation and you have no obligations, right? Because people are like, yeah, I'm okay. I can survive on 6.5 hours or 6 hours of sleep. You might be a short sleeper, but most likely you need closer to 7 or 8. So once you've set that, then you can kind of walk your way backward. What time do I have to wake up in the morning to get my day started, right? And so you just kind of count backwards. And then that's how you start. So that's with even setting your sleep goals in terms of the number of hours of sleep. And then, incorporating some healthy sleep habits. Sometimes you hear about sleep hygiene. I'm not a fan of sleep hygiene because it makes it seem like when you don't sleep, you're not clean or something of that sort. So I usually would just say, get the right sleep habits in place. And some of those things, I have an acronym called CREATE. That's CREATE. And so C is for consistency. And the key behind that is having a set wake time and sleep time. And the reason why is that we all have this internal clock or circadian rhythm. And so making sure that we're keeping to a consistent sleep time and wake time is that it cues that circadian rhythm to anticipate sleep. The R is having a routine at bedtime. So what does that look like? Like you talked about, we sing to our kids, then we read a book and we take a bath and we do some massage, you name it. Our bodies deserve that too. Our bodies deserve that a lot, So finding 2 or 3 calming activities that are going to transition you from your day into night is really important. And so for some, it may be some breath work. It may be reading a book. It may be, taking a bath. Something of that sort, and putting it in place where you're doing it consistently is also very helpful. And then E stands for the environment. So you want your environment to be cool, to be dark, and to be noise-free. And all these are evidence-based to impact the quality of sleep you get. So see that we're not only just talking about the quantity of sleep, we're now focusing a lot on how to improve the quality of sleep. And then A, I usually will say, is assign your bed for sleep and sex, and that's it. So your bed should not be where you are, your movie theater or your dining room or your office or your, you name it, whatever it is.
Right.
Or your space for worry. It shouldn't be your worry space, So you really want to keep that place as sacred as possible. And then T is tackle technology. We could talk all day about that, right? The devices, the impulses, the arousals we get from that text or that post or things like that. And then the last E, usually I talk about things you need to eliminate. So caffeine is a stimulant which stays in your system for a long time. And so you want to take caffeine, but if you want to take it, you want to be done about 12 p.m. or 1 p.m. 12.
Really?
12 yeah, it turns out the half-life is so long. It's about 6 hours depending on people's metabolism. So if you drink caffeine for dinner and you have a 50% half-life, meaning it's down by 50% at 6 hours, it's still going to be in your system. And so sometimes that feeling of not being able to get deep sleep may be related to the caffeine still in your system. And the same for alcohol. Alcohol is a sedative, actually. It helps you fall asleep, but then your liver gets rid of it really quickly. And so because of that, it then starts to disrupt and fragment your sleep. And then the final thing, what's that? In terms of the eliminate is, for me, usually what I would say is avoid heavy meals at bedtime, also because of that discomfort and things like that you may experience. And your body really shouldn't be focusing on digestion. By the time you're asleep, your body should be focused on restoring you and getting the sleep you need. So those are easy, evidence-based tips that I usually provide where you can start. You can literally start tonight.
Yeah, they're perfect. I am actually taking notes as we're talking. This is great. We've got boundaries. We know how much sleep we need and how to get the best sleep. So when you talk about you help moms, busy professional moms, and their kids get sleep, talk to me about that, because I'm a little mystified and I don't know if I should be locking my kids in their rooms at night or what. But okay, so here are the most common complaints I hear. Okay. Perimenopausal women, I can fall asleep, but I wake up and 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I cannot get back to sleep and I'm just miserable and grumpy all day. Or shift work, right? 12-hour night shift or a 24-hour shift. They're dead tired, take several days to recover. Or getting woken up by the kids all night, right? So you've got young kids and you're like, I don't know the last time that I've slept through the night, because it's one or the other or multiples who are waking me throughout the night. So talk to us about this. What do we do?
Exactly. So each one is so unique, which is why I really love what I do. I think what prompted me initially was, it's that mom, right? You're saying I finally get to drift off to sleep. And suddenly I had this pitter-patter down the hall. And it's and it takes you so long. So, and then it turns out even after that initial, so first of all, then, they were newborns, you didn't sleep. Then they became toddlers and started pushing back. And then they're preschoolers and they're scared about the monster under the, under the bed. And then finally, maybe they are finally getting to sleep. Now you can't sleep because your brain is now constantly on overdrive, especially like you mentioned, with hormonal changes, with the demands that we continue to have, and really not having time to unplug and things like that. Those all contribute. So depending on what is going on, I'm able to kind of work families through if it's your child that's your sleep disruptor. So it turns out not just medical issues are your sleep disruptor. Sometimes the kids. And yes, I mean, people have considered locking those kids in the room. Yes, I have to say that that's also come up quite a number of times. But there are strategies we can put in place, regardless of the age of the child, regardless of the sleep issues they're having. And so I can kind of work with both of you, essentially, with helping your child sleep independently, because who doesn't want that? And once your child is able to sleep independently, you should be able to get that sleep you need. Or if you're not, then we could talk through what are the specific issues. Like you said, mind racing at bedtime is very common, especially for women. Or they may be so tired they fell asleep. And then once that initial sleep pressure is down, it's like that flight and fight response now comes up. And so we can talk through like strategies to deal with that. Some of that involves a lot of journaling, meditation, finding things that can help you kind of slow that nervous system down. And things like that is what I work with. And then usually what I recommend is if you've been in bed and it's become, again, that place of frustration, you're tossing and turning, you're exhausted, you're already dreading the morning because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a mess. Then we talk about things like stimulus control, which are components of things we use in cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, for women, for everyone generally, where you need to get out of that bed. Remember, we want to make the bed a place of sleep, a place of safety, not a place of worry. So usually we'll talk about getting you out of bed, getting you doing something else. And when sleep comes, because sleep will always come, then you come back to bed. And then, of course, we also want to address any other underlying issues, right? Is it anxiety? Do you need to see a therapist? Do you need to seek help?
Right. Is there a sleep disorder, medical condition? Yeah, there's so many, which is why we have sleep medicine specialists like yourself. So talk to me about, or tell our audience about your program, how you work with moms. Are you working... Is this global? Are you restricted by states? How is this working? Because I really want to know about Restful Sleep MD.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have, I would say a day job, I guess, as an employed physician. And in that capacity, I see children with sleep issues. My company, Restful Sleep MD, is an online coaching program where I have one-on-one coaching for moms. And, if the children are, contributing to why they're not sleeping, then I'm working with them to help them become their children's sleep coach, essentially, and teach those kids how to sleep. And so usually it's an 8-week program where we review your sleep diary, we set sleep goals, we have strategies in place to create boundaries to make sure you're getting the sleep you need. And if you're not able to, why you're not. And we're really drilling down to why. And then at the end, we're coming up with sustainable plans, because life happens. You may get to a point where you're like, yes, I could sleep now. But then we have to empower you with the tools you need when that comes, when there's a loss of a loved one, or there's a change of a job, or a move, or a child that's sick, or something like that. How do we make sure that this plan that we've come up with is sustainable for the future? And really, that's what I do. And then I also speak as my passion as an educator in various platforms, in webinars, at conferences, and also I guest coach. So for coaching programs, I also do come in to speak on sleep, especially as a critical aspect of our wellness.
Awesome. That's awesome. Well, we all do need sleep, and pregnancy and perimenopause are those times that I often see that women are having a really hard time sleeping. So I'm so glad to know that you're out there and that you can help all those women. So tell us how they can find you.
Yes. So one of the best places to find me is on my website at restfulsleepmd.com. And I do have a blog there as well. So there's some resources that you could get started with, including the steps for creating restful sleep habits. It comes as a tip sheet. So you could just print that out and put that on your fridge and let's get sleeping tonight.
Yeah.
That's one quick place. And then also on there also, if you want to connect with me and you're interested in speaking with me regarding working in my program, that would be the best place as well. And I'm also on social media, Facebook and Instagram as Restful Sleep MD. I have a YouTube channel as well where I really just speak on a lot of common sleep issues that moms have, either related to their infants, to their toddlers, to their teenagers, or to them themselves. And so that's also a place where you could get some access to the things that I do.
Fantastic. I just went and signed up for your tip sheet right now.
Yay, that's awesome.
All right. And there's my email. Okay. Fantastic. So ladies, go check out Dr. Brown with all these fantastic tips so that we can get to sleeping better, so we can thrive in our lives. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
All right, Sky community, thank you for listening to another episode. This episode was sponsored by Sky Women's Health. As a reminder, we're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we help relieve back pain and pelvic pain in pregnancy and beyond. If you are pregnant and having pain and you feel like you have no reliable way to relieve it, look us up at skywomenshealth.com, request an appointment, and we'll call to get you scheduled. As a board-certified OB-GYN with a neuromusculoskeletal medicine fellowship, I help you realign with hands-on drug-free treatment and relieve pain on the spot without medication. We'll help you maintain these results through your pregnancy and postpartum period. Every pregnant person deserves this, and we are so excited to serve you. You can find us on our website, as mentioned, or on social at Sky Women's Health, or you can call the office at 817-915-9803. That's it for today. Until next week, be well.